pursuant to the Governor's Executive Order N29-20. Members of the Board of
Hi,
Ethics.
Chair.
Yes.
Sorry, we couldn't hear you at the beginning. Can we start over, please? Thank you.
Okay. Can you hear me better now?
Yeah, I think it was on mute. Thank you.
Okay. Please, okay. The time is 5:24 p.m. on April 21, 2021, and I would like to call this meeting of the Board of Ethics to order. In the interest of public health and safety and pursuant to the Governor's Executive Order N-29-20, members of the Board of Ethics and staff are participating in this meeting by teleconference. In accordance with the Executive Order, the public may be viewing this meeting online, but not in Executive Conference Room 103. The city launched a virtual commenting portal, e-comment, that allows residents to comment and participate in the meeting from their own homes, and you can find the link to e-comment at chulavistaca.gov/virtual meetings. Your comments must be received before I call for the closing commenting period in order to be considered. After the commenting period is closed, I will announce a brief pause to allow the commissioners time to read any comments that have been received. If you have any difficulty or need assistance with e-comment during the meeting, please call area code 619-576-5366, and the city attorney staff will assist you. Would the secretary please call the roll?
Chair Guerrero.
Present.
Member Bardagon.
Present.
Member Salzman.
Present.
Member Teal.
Present.
Member Torres. She was present. Did we lose Torres, Marisa?
No, I
her
still
on there.
I see her. She's muted. Let me unmute. Hi, Carmen.
Hello, I'm present.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And we did receive an email communication from Member Chen stating that she was unable to attend the meeting today. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. So Board Member Chan is absent. Okay. We'll go on to public comments. Public comments is a section on the agenda for members of the public to address the board on items that are not listed on the agenda. I will now call for a 2-minute pause to allow the public to submit any final public comments. As a reminder, please refresh the view on your screen to ensure new comments appear. And please display the 2 minutes. Thank you. I'm sorry, did the timer start?
Sorry, I'm sharing now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Super.
Okay,
Okay, there were no public comments received via email or e-comments.
great. Thank you so much. Okay, we'll move on to the agenda. Item number 1. First item on the agenda is approval of the minutes for September 16, 2020 and January 20, 2021. Does the staff have a presentation?
There's no staff presentation. The minutes were attached to the agenda materials.
Okay. Thank you, Simone. Do the board members have any clarifying questions for the staff before we go to public comment? Okay, nothing heard. I will now call for a 2-minute pause to allow public to submit any final comments on the item before the board deliberation. As a reminder, please refresh the view on your screen to ensure new comments. And I guess, can you please start the 2-minute timer again? Thank you, Melissa. The commenting period for this item is now closed.
There were no public comments received via email or e-comments.
Okay, thank you. Do any board members have any comments or questions about the minutes? Okay, nothing heard. If not, we'll go ahead and I'll make a motion to accept the minutes for, September 16th, 2020 and January 20, 2021.
I will now request each member's vote by roll call. Member Barragan.
We do need a second.
We need a
Oh,
second.
I'm
yeah.
sorry. I'm so sorry.
I'll second it. It's Stephanie.
Stephanie. Okay, I will now request each member's vote by roll call. Member Barragan.
Yes, I approve.
Member Salzman. We'll come back. Member Teal.
Approve.
Member Torres. Chair Guerrero.
Yes, approved.
Melissa, can you unmute Torres? Member Torres?
Yes, I approve.
Okay, thank you. And Member Salzman?
Was not present at any of these meetings due to some error with my email, and I did not participate in the meetings themselves. I'd rather not say anything either way.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, in light of the fact that we don't, let's see, we have 5 present. Just make sure. You could proceed. There's 5 members present and 4 voted aye with 1 abstention.
Got it. Thank you, Simone. Okay. Next on my agenda is communication requesting excused absence for member Salzman from January 2021 Board of Ethics meeting. And as Simona mentioned earlier, it was part of our packet. So we'll go ahead and do the board member. Well, oh, it says here display item 2 attachment, which, like I mentioned, we do have that on the board packet. Do the board members have any clarifying questions for staff before we go to public comment?
No, but I would add, the reason for it is that we had Mr. Salzman's incorrect email and didn't send him notice of the last meeting, so he wasn't able to attend. So it was through no fault of his that he didn't attend.
Copy. Thank you, Simone, for clarifying that. Okay, we'll now call for a 2-minute pause to allow the public to submit any final comments on the item before the board. As a reminder, please refresh the view on your screen to ensure new comments appear. Will staff please display the public comment and start the timer? Okay, time is now up. The comment period for this item is now closed.
Okay, there were no public comments received via e-comments or email.
Thank you. Do any board members have any comments or questions? Okay, nothing heard. I'll make a motion to accept the excuse for Mr. Salzman's absence on January 20, 2021.
I second the motion.
Thank you, Ms. Stephanie.
Okay, I will now request each member's vote by roll call. Member Barragan?
Aye.
Member Salzman?
I think it's the same situation as before, no? Since I was not here, and this has to do with me, I don't know exactly how to vote.
You can make a motion to excuse your absence.
Yeah, there's no conflict because there's no financial interest in this. You're a volunteer person on the board, so there's no conflict there. You can vote to excuse your absence.
All right, so I vote to excuse my absence with the proviso that I was wondering why someone did not call me. You do have my telephone number.
Simone, would you like to elaborate on that? Sorry.
I don't have your phone number, and since it's remote, it's hard to gather those things just on the fly.
Okay, we'll move forward. Member Torres
Aye.
and Chair Guerrero.
Aye. Okay, motion passes, I think, majority aye. Okay, moving on to the next item, item number 3. The next item on the agenda is conduct prima, I guess, not sure how to pronounce that, facie review pursuant to CVMC 2.28.110 of the Board of Ethics Complaints 2021 tag 04 tag alpha and 2021 tag 04 tag bravo, including discussion and action. As Simone mentioned earlier, this is part of our package, but I'll pass it on to Simone. Do you want to present anything, Simone? Before we
I do. I would ask, let's see. Sure, I could share. Okay, I can share my screen. The Board of Ethics has jurisdiction over violations of specified prohibitions that's set forth in the Municipal Code 2.01030C. And so what ends up happening is people file complaints, and when they file a complaint, the city gets it, meaning our office. We give it a case number. We notify the complainant that we received it and that the board is going to hear it. We also notify the subject of the complaint and provide them a copy of the complaint. And we've done all that. We've given a case number. We notified the involved parties. The next step after that is to conduct a prima facie review. And so I want to explain what a prima facie review is to help you. So let me get my PowerPoint on. Let's see. Beginning. Okay. So what I'm going to discuss now here is the overview of the prima facie review process and the review of the 2 complaints that we received in this case, in this matter. We provided both complaints to you in the materials. One of them is dated April 5th, 2021. That is complaint number 2021-04A. And basically that involves a complaint regarding a council member, John McCann. And it states that I have received multiple emails from Councilmember McCann in which he does not state which district he represents. I'm confused. Is he representing me now? His emails do not clarify which or whom he represents. The second complaint that we received was dated, I think, April 7th. Again. And it is from a Mr. Watry, and he has a similar complaint regarding sending of emails to him and some people that he knows, and he resides in Council District 2, and then again it's against Councilmember McCann who represents District 1, and his complaint is that a District 1 council member should not send materials to a District 2 council area or outside their districts. So that's the general complaint. And so in terms of a complaint, there are 3 parts to a complaint process. The first is a prima facie review. That's a preliminary review. We're only looking at the document itself, and we're trying to make sure that the Board of Ethics has jurisdiction, and there's certain things that have to be found to find jurisdiction. If the Board of Ethics were to find that it has jurisdiction, then it would send it to a probable cause hearing where there's a little bit more evidence presented, and witnesses and argument can be made. And there's a determination that that has to be made that there's a strong suspicion the allegation's true. That way it can proceed to a full hearing on the merits. So each step is kind of designed to make sure that we're going to put somebody through this process, that there's enough to go forward at each stage of the process. And especially at this stage, the complaints are technically the charging documents. That's the document that the subject of the complaint gets and has to be able to defend against. So it serves a whole lot of roles. So that's why the prima facie review is in there, to make sure there's jurisdiction in the matter by the board, and two, to also make sure the person would have notice if there is jurisdiction as to what they would have to defend against it. So it's the first review, and it's solely a review of the complaint. There are no witnesses or arguments. It's just looking at the four corners of the document. And it's to ensure that the Board of Ethics has jurisdiction in the matter. And so the Board of Ethics has only jurisdiction for violations of specific prohibitions, also called specified prohibitions, set forth in 2.01030C. There are three sections to that municipal code section. There's A, B, and C. A has what are called guiding principles, and they're really kind of principles that we strive to adhere to. There are things like to use good judgment, to consider the public's interest in decisions, things that are incredibly broad in terms of how you think, and they're so broad you really can't assign somebody fault for it. Because if somebody says make the best judgment in favor of the city, people have policy decisions that support things or against it that really aren't enforceable, because there's a bad idea and a good idea, and sometimes it's unclear whether it's good or bad. But it instructs them to, when you're making that decision, to keep the city's interest ahead of everything else. So that's why it's just a guiding principle. B is additional guiding principles for the Board of Ethics in terms of making sure that they avoid conflicts of interest, being aware of when they present things to the public that they are on the Board of Ethics and they need to be impartial and things like that. But C is the specified or specific prohibitions that if it's violated by a city official, they can be sanctioned by city council through our process that we go through in finding the allegations true or not. And so the first thing that has to happen is, to make sure you have jurisdiction, is that you look at what's required under 2.28090A. These are the things that a complaint has to have to move forward. The complaint has to be in writing. It has to identify a person subject to the Code of Ethics, because not everybody in the city is subject to the Code of Ethics. The complaint has to have a full allegation of facts that would constitute or show a violation of the specific prohibitions found in 030C, and that the complaint has to be signed under penalty of perjury, and it has to be timely, that the complaint was submitted within 90 days of the occurrence. Each one of these elements, and you know, the writing, identify a person subject to the code, enough facts to show that there's a violation of the specified prohibitions. C, that it's signed under penalty of perjury, and that the complaint be timely submitted within 90 days, has to be there. If any one of these elements are missing, then there is no jurisdiction and the complaint must be dismissed. So all of it has to be met. Some are easier than others, but they all have to be met. So the first one, just kind of like I said, I'm going to go through each one and what they mean. The complaint has to be in writing. That's pretty obvious. We have a complaint form which both parties used. They completed it. They actually used an older version of the complaint form. There's a more newer version of it that kind of walks people through these elements that have to be proven. That's also available, but this was sufficient for your review. Now, the complaint has to identify a person subject to the Code of Ethics. So like I said, it doesn't apply to everybody. And can you folks hear me?
Yes, I can hear
Okay,
you.
good.
Simone.
Okay, good, because I can't see if my mute was off. Okay, so it has to identify somebody subject to the Code of Ethics. It doesn't apply to every city employee. It applies to the larger policy-making decision makers of the city. So the city officials that are subject to it are the mayor, all the council members, city manager, the city attorney, the city clerk, board members and commissioners, assistant city managers, department heads, as well as ex-city officials, meaning these people are still subject to it even if they retire or leave city service. So it has to be in writing, has to identify a person subject to the code of ethics, and they're called city officials. It has to be a city official. The second part, a lot of times, is the one which has a lot of discussion, because it has to have, it says, a full allegation of facts that would constitute or show a violation of the specific prohibitions. And it can't be a conclusionary statement. So for example, down below it says 1, accept gifts, favors, promises of future benefits which might compromise or tend to impair independence of judgment or action. It can't say council member X accepted a gift, favor, promise, future benefits which might compromise or tend to impair the independence of their action. That can't be the complaint. It has to say Councilmember X on this date accepted a bag full of money, $200, on an item that was going to appear before him in council. It literally has to have that type of description. It can't be a conclusionary statement. It has to have facts. That way the person that's defending against it gets in there and say, 1, I didn't take money from anybody. It wasn't a bag. There was no cash. There was nothing. The item wasn't before council, or there was no item before council. I played no role in the item before, so it gives them enough to defend against the charges. So just writing that by saying this person violated this section is insufficient. They got to tell the story so the person is able to defend against it. That's usually how it's done, and the large part that's discussed in prior complaints that the board has had. So it has to have enough facts to show one of those specified prohibitions are violated, and there's 13 of them. And if somebody complains, they could complain about something else, but if it's not one of the 13, there's no jurisdiction. So there has to be enough facts, more than conclusions, that a prohibition's been violated. And these are the 13 prohibitions, and I took them right out of the code. So the first one is accepting gifts or favors or promises of future benefits which might compromise or tend to impair independence of judgment. The other one is the use of their official title or position for personal gain. Personal gain includes, but is not limited to, situations where city officials solicit or accepts items of value in consideration of their official title or positions. This does not include getting benefits that the public generally gets. One thing about this section, we're not talking about a couple of things. One, a campaign contribution is not a gift. And the reason for that is the FPPC in the Political Reform Act specifically says that campaign contributions are not considered gifts. What we're talking about in this section is if somebody says, hey, I'm the city manager, I should get a discount when I buy this car, that people don't ordinarily get, or things like that. It's quid pro quo, kind of demanding something or a bribe. So that's really what we're talking about there. You can't divulge information for personal gain or for the gain of associates in a manner contrary to the public interest or in violation of any law. Generally, things that are in closed session should stay in closed session. Number 4, use or permit of city resources included but not limited to funds, seals, or logos, city time, personnel, supplies, equipment, identification cards, badges, for unapproved non-city activities except when available to the general public, provided for administrative regulation policies or city council. That's really the abuse of city resources. There's things that are routinely done and which are allowed, but if you're using stuff for personal use, that's generally going to be a violation. 5, for current city officials to appear on behalf of private interests or third parties. There's rules against that, so you can't be appearing before a body to advocate for them. 5, no ex-city official for a period of 1 year after leaving office or employment shall, for compensation, act as an agent, attorney for, or otherwise represent another, making oral or written comments. Again, you can't hold a position here and then come back within a year and advocate for something on behalf of somebody else. 7, no former member of city council, and this is kind of like number 6, but city council members can do it if approved by city council. Again, if they don't have the approval, then they can't. Number 8, endorse for compensation or recommend for compensation any commercial product or service in the name of the city. So you can't be telling people I'm a council member, you should buy this car, you should go to this business in terms of, for compensation, recommend products. 9 is violate a Government Code Section 87-100, which basically means if you violate the Political Reform Act, it's something that you folks have jurisdiction over. However, the process for that is that we would usually refer to the FPPC first for their consideration and action first. But if they don't take it and we want to go forward as a board, you have that ability to do so. 10, you can't coerce a subordinate of yours to engage in a political activity or support somebody. 11, you can't display campaign materials on city-owned vehicles, which includes bumper stickers, signs, or similar items. City vehicles and city property is neutral on any election. 12, no city official shall aid and abet another city official to violate the specific prohibitions, meaning that the two can't get together to violate them. And then no city official shall negotiate for employment with any person, firm, organization at the same time that aforementioned person, firm, or organization has a matter pending before city council, board, or commission, or a department upon which a city official must act or make a recommendation. Again, you can't be negotiating with somebody that can employ you down the line. So that's pretty much the 13 prohibitions that are out there. It's really focusing on you can't be doing stuff for your own personal gain or pecuniary gain, and you also can't be pretty much campaigning on city time or using city resources, and that you can't lobby for people when you leave city employment if you're one of these, if you're a public official. The other thing that has to happen in order to meet the criteria, again, so it has to be in writing. A public official has to be the subject. It has to show a violation of a specific prohibition. And now it has to also be signed under penalty of perjury. And the complaint must be submitted within 90 days of occurrence. To have jurisdiction, the complaint must have all the required elements of a complaint. If not, the complaint must be dismissed. So we have to have all those things. Does anybody have any questions at this point in terms of what you're looking for? No? Okay. I will go ahead and turn to the complaints themselves. The first one, which was in your package, was complaint. It was item 4.3, attachment 1, complaint 2021-04A, and that's the one from Mr. Espinoza saying that he received multiple emails from Councilmember McCann, which does not state which district he represents. And so again, if you look on the right, and you'll have to excuse the colors, when I cut it and pasted it over from Word, it automatically gave these colors and I wasn't able to take it off. So the colors have no meaning. But the first column that's there, it says in writing, name city official, specific prohibition, signed, and then timely in parentheses 90 days. That's what's required to be shown by their complaint in order for you to go forward. And so just to make it simple, I listed that, and the next column is what we have there to support it. And so is the document in writing? Clearly it is. It got received on April 5th, 2021. We assigned it the case number that's listed above. So the column says yes, it's our advice that it met that criteria. Does it name a city official? That's the second item that's there. It lists Councilmember McCann. Councilmember McCann is a public official or city official within the municipal code section. So yes, he met that criteria. The next thing is a specific prohibition. So his complaint has to identify one of the 13 specific prohibitions. And so the complaint is this: complainant received multiple emails from Councilmember McCann where he does not state which district he represents. That's what his complaint's about. Our advice is that it does not meet the requirement of identifying a specific prohibition with sufficient facts, because his complaint isn't one of the 13 specified prohibitions. So there's no basis to find that there's a violation based on his allegations. Was it signed, which is the next criteria? Yes, it was. We blacked it out in the materials that you received. We do that because we've had identity theft as a result of displaying people's signatures, so we didn't do it, but it was signed, and so it did meet that criteria. Was it timely? Within 90 days, He provided the date of 3/29/2021 of the date of the incident. He says he received multiple emails. It's unclear whether all the emails were received on that date or other dates, but at a minimum, he said he does provide within 90 days of when it was filed. So all the criteria are met, except that it fails to identify a specific prohibition. So with regard to this complaint, it would be our recommendation that the complaint be dismissed for failing to identify a specific prohibition. I'll turn to the next one. Complaint 2021-04B. Again, I go through the same process on this. This one is from Mr. Watry. It was filed on April 7th, and it is in writing. We received it again, like it's in the package. So yes, it meets that criteria. It names a city official, Councilmember McCann. He's one of the city officials identified in the municipal code subject to the code of ethics. So he met that criteria. A specific prohibition, it's our advice that he did not meet that criteria. The complainant says that he received newsletters from McCann via email. He attached copies of those newsletters. Complainant lives in District 2 and McCann represents District 1. He asserts it's unethical for a council member from one district to send newsletter to a person in another district. That does not satisfy the specified prohibitions, meaning it's not one of the 13 items we've identified. And I also will bring up another thing. There is no prohibition either by policy, municipal code, state or federal law that prohibits a local council member that represents one district from having representations in another district. So there is no law that's been violated that we're aware of. And so it doesn't meet the jurisdictional element for the Board of Ethics. And there's also no current violations of another law that's out there. This issue in terms of what a council member can do in another district has been the subject of referral to our office. So our office has been provided a referral to look into this issue and to see if there's any rules that could be made that council can discuss. But right now there is no unlawfulness to this action or to the allegation. Was it signed under penalty of perjury? It was. So it met that criteria. And was it timely? It identifies February and March of 2021 as the time frame, and the attached emails to the documents to the complaint also support that. Again, it meets all the criteria except that it does not identify one of the 13 specified prohibitions, and for that basis, it's our advice that the Board of Ethics not have jurisdiction in the matter. So at this point, I'd ask any of the commissioners whether they have any comments or questions.
I have a question, Commissioner Barragan.
Yes.
More related to information. From my understanding now, in these, I understand what we went over. I'm curious if there's still a way. Does the board still inform the complainant of other ways to address the issue?
Not really. There's no process for that. We do advise the complainant about the results, as well as the subject of the complaint, the results and the reason for it, so they know that it didn't meet one of the criteria. So if they'd like, they can always try to see if they can meet it. But I think the complaints is written. There's really no way to bring this within, the shadow of another of one of the 13 specified prohibitions. And really that's why we the board has to be neutral, because you're sitting as a judge. And that's why we don't tell either side how to improve their complaint, what issues they should identify. It's really their burden of proof and to bring the complaint. Because just imagine if you went to court and you won, but then the judge is telling the other side, hey, if you do this, this, and this, you could still go after them. A judge doesn't get involved in that level. Same thing if the other way. The judge tells the winner, you could do this, this, and this to go after them even more. So it's a neutral process.
I'd kind of like to piggyback on what he said, though, coming from my previous position being with a different city entity. I know that we would have, for these particular, you know, they have valid reasons. To me, it's like, is it a mail server issue? Like, what happened here? And we would guide them into the right direction so that complaints like this don't really come to our level, because it would have gone to some other location and there would be an assist for that location. So I kind of agree with him, like, why wouldn't we, someone from the city side of this, before it comes to us, or I know we have to like decline it or agree with it and all of that because it's come to our level, but the response to the people sending it in, help them to the right department.
Well, a couple of things. One, when it comes into us, our office doesn't act as a filter. And so we bring all the complaints to you folks, whether there's merit or not. We do that to ensure that we don't get accused of filtering out complaints and things like that. So we bring it to you. And then secondly, this complaint isn't really a process complaint in terms of it was an email server issue or it was done accidentally. It's basically people aren't happy that one council member is communicating to other districts, and there's no in terms of a department or doing something like that. The issues are, the council's already aware of the issue, and they've made a referral to our office to look into ways how council members conduct themselves in other districts. So I can add in the letter that there's been a referral to look into these issues by city council, but I think that would be the extent of it. You know.
So to tag on to that, then my thing would be is, what would stop, let's just say, these two people from continue to send us in same types of complaints, because we can't help them, and thinking that this is the only level that they can attend it to, because we're not helping end that situation. I understand the transparency and that we don't want to look like we're not taking in things we should be, but I just feel like this could become a repetitive thing. And I think that this was mentioned before we, I think in my first meeting that we had, that there had been constituents that did do repetitive stuff like that at some point. So that's my concern, is like, you know, we all have timeframes that we're working with to do things, and we're spending our time today on these two issues that, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but
it's definitely, if I may, I think at the end of the day, we do have to accept all complaints, no matter how many numerous come in. And I think at this point, I mean, by exception, we'd have to look at one each individually. But with this one in particular, there's no violation of the 13 specific. There's no law been broken, nothing really. I mean, bottom line, if they really want to, they can unsubscribe to that email that's sent out. But in this case, these two complaints don't have any merit for we, and I don't want to say we, but the city doesn't have anything they could go back. I'm sure for different ones, we can approach it, you know, every complaint's going to be different, and we can look at each one individually. But this one, I mean, bottom line, there's nothing anybody can advise them, with the exception of unsubscribe. But there's no violation of anything here, not even political reform acts, nothing really that we can tell them. Over.
Yeah, the one thing I think we can do is just let them know that the matter, that council's aware, and that there's been a referral to our office to see if council wants to take any additional action, which, you know, there was a referral made. And so just letting them know that it's not really a Board of Ethics item, or and it's more of a.
And if they resubmit, we'll have to look at it again. We had one previously a few years ago, similar situation, but the same person submitted the same complaint, and we looked at it again, and we had to dismiss it. So yes, you're right. They're going to continue doing it, but we'll just continue looking at them individually and then dismissing them as necessary. Hold
May
on.
I make a comment, please? Can I make a comment?
Of course.
When I look at what is being submitted, I see McCann's picture 5 or 6 times. So I ask myself whether this is a form of using city resources to put your picture in there 5 or 6 times, and whether, again, this is using city resources for that purpose. I'm wondering what is the real intent of putting your picture in there so many times on these flyers.
Well, can I say a couple of things? One, that's not the nature of the complaint. And so there's no notice to anybody that that's what you're that Mr. McCann would have to defend against. But the other part is there are rules against mass mailings and electronic communication, including newsletters like this, do not violate mass mailing rules. In fact, it's what would be a mass mailing if this were a hard copy of it. So it's not unusual for elected officials, whether it's McCann or other ones, to send newsletters like this with their photos describing things that they're doing. It does not violate the mass mailing rules set up by the FPPC as well. So there is a bit of a, if this were in writing and he sent out 200 and something of these in a month to a person's residence, business, or PO box, then they'd be a violation of the law. But this isn't a violation of the law. And then secondly, the practice that's done isn't unusual. All the council members do it to some extent. Board of Supervisors, we get newsletters. I know I do that they do that. There is a hint of look at me, what I'm doing, but it's not unlawful. And
Do we
council
know,
members,
do we have numbers as to how many of these mailings are being sent by others?
no. And there is no rule against it.
And Mr. Salzman, I'll let you know. I mean, if your email is ever included in anything anywhere, they will you will be included in those distro lists that they have, because I get emails from council members from District 4, District 3, and just in general. It's just one of those things. If for whatever reason your email was included in something political at one point or another, your email is put on that distribution list, and the best you can do at that point is just unsubscribe to them. But I receive even from the mayor, I receive from everywhere, like Simone mentioned, even from state assembly, everywhere, and nothing to do with me. But they just, if your email gets caught up on these lists, it's a mass distro list. Well,
I have another question, please. In using these mass distribution lists, if I, as a council member, recommend or point out a particular bar, a particular restaurant, will that in any way raise any alerts?
No, it's not unusual for council members to announce openings of restaurants and businesses in the city, because council members would like to support their community businesses. So it's not unusual. Whether it's, I think the most recent place was the Farm Table. I know there's a lot of businesses on 3rd Avenue that get brought up in news mailings. In fact, I bet you the next round of news mailings will highlight that the city just opened up its new marijuana dispensary. That's licensed and permitted in the city. So identifying businesses is not unusual in a newsletter.
I was wondering if from a point of view of ethics, if from a point of view of ethics, is there a need to sharpen more the type of information a council member puts, the number of his pictures that go into this thing, so as to just make sure that we don't cross the border from general information to promoting my face, because I may have another ulterior motive in all of this.
There could be. It's something that council can take up on their own in terms of what policies they want to have in terms of use of emails. And then also, you know, the emailing and use of electronic media is something that the FPPC has looked at. They at one point formed a committee to examine the issue. It's also something you folks can discuss down the line in terms of making recommendations to the code of ethics and things like that. But as for now, it's not an issue that's part of this complaint. And it could be something that could be there for discussion at a subsequent board meeting.
I think that would be a good idea, basically, if we could get some of those guidelines regarding the use of city resources for purposes of, as we say, informing relative to promoting ourselves. If there are some guidelines like that, it would be interesting to have them.
Yeah, if we did do something like that, I can provide materials of what the current mass mailing rules are, and then some discussion on electronic communications to see what the FPPC considered, and you folks can make recommendations in that regard as well.
Thank you.
Simone, if I could add something.
Yeah.
Just to this discussion. I really I like the points Mr. Salzman has highlighted. I think I'm getting an idea of one of the concerns, but I'll share that after a point. That is, I think in this day and age, it's probably more cost effective to email information like flyers and such and newsletters than to use mass mailing. And I think it is in the spirit of transparency to identify yourself, right? Put your face on a message for your district, so that people can know who you are and who you're, when they see you or go to when you're in meetings, they can easily identify you and your positions instead of having a statement without a signature and a face to own that statement. I think one thought that came to mind when Mr. Salzman was bringing up these points was if a councilman were to repeatedly promote, certain businesses, I don't think there's a way to really track that message, right? In these electronic transmissions. I don't know if that's a concern Mr. Salzman was trying to hint at, or who would a councilman prioritize? Again, I agree this is a good discussion to consider, but probably out of the scope of the complaints we're addressing now. But just a thought.
Yeah, I could add it to the subject. So maybe we could put on like an electronic mass mailing as opposed to the hard copy, and then within it we discuss the use of photographs and advertising for businesses or things like that down the line. So at this point, so I would ask, since we're going to have our 2 minutes for public comment, and so they're aware of what the issue is. So at this point, I would ask, based on our recommendation, that both complaints be dismissed for failing to identify a specified prohibition under the municipal code, specifically that it didn't identify any of the 13 criteria. So that's the motion that would be under consideration. That way people can comment on that before you go forward. And then there's kind of an asterisk in it that we'll come back to have a discussion on mass mailings, both electronic and hard copy, and then some areas of concern so we can build on that.
So Simone, you're saying we should make the motion before the 2-minute?
You can.
Okay.
The public gets to comment before a final action is considered.
Okay. I'll make the motion to dismiss 2021 tag 04 tag Alpha and Bravo due to not enough. I'm sorry. It does not meet the 13 one of the 13 specific prohibitions.
I second that motion.
Okay, we have a second. I will now call for a 2-minute pause to allow the public to submit any final comments on the item before the board deliberation. As a reminder, please refresh the view on your screen to ensure new comments appear. Will the staff please display the public comment and start the time? Okay, the commenting period for this item is now closed. Are there any comments?
There were no public comments submitted via e-comments or email.
Thank you. Okay, before we vote, do any board members have any further comments or questions?
I do have one question, somewhat related. What company is this Constant Contact? Is this a company hired by the city, or who hired them?
And where are you referring to constant contact?
I'm sorry?
Where are you referring to constant contact?
I'm sorry, yeah, you asking where I can find that reference? Is that your question?
Yeah, I don't know who I saw at the back that constant contact.
Simone, it's at the bottom of the newsletter, way at the bottom.
I don't know whether it's Mr. McCann or whether the city hired them. We weren't provided any information on that.
Is it possible to find out who actually hired them and by what process?
Yes, but it isn't relevant to this item.
What may be seem irrelevant to you may not be irrelevant to me.
Okay.
And I think that just because something doesn't seem relevant to one person doesn't mean it may not be relevant. Maybe.
Mr. Salzman, we're trying to stick to the complaint itself. We're not trying to develop a different complaint. So we got to stick to the complaints that were submitted, which was the distribution of the newsletters, and not try to find other complaints within this within the complaints. I think we should just stick to what we're voting at this time. If you'd like to bring it up at another time, that would be okay. But for this motion, we're just discussing the distribution of letters.
I agree with the motion. I agree with it. But since this comes up in the information that is presented to us, I'm not saying that it is part of the complaint. I'm simply wondering where this company comes from and who hired them and how. I think it's
I can
a question
report back.
that has to do with concern about the use of city resources.
I can find out, but there is no complaint on that issue.
I am not saying there was a complaint.
Okay.
I'm just asking a question.
I can find out.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, does anybody else have any comments or questions? Okay.
Okay, I will now request each member's vote by roll call. Member Barragan?
Aye.
Member Salzman?
Aye.
Member Teal?
Aye.
Member Torres?
Aye.
And Chair Guerrero?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. So that's the last item on the agenda. Is there, want to move on to the next staff comments? Over to you, Simone.
Let me, okay, good, I'm on. Well, thank you for this meeting. It's interesting discussion like these complaints always are. I'll get back on the, to get on the agenda, the issues of mass mailing. And then at the same time, I'll report about who Constant Contact is. I appreciate the discussion, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that it was irrelevant to your interest or concern, Mr. Salzman, but to me, it was I was just looking at the complaint. It may have other issues you want to explore down the line, so I'm sorry about that. But welcome. This is your first meeting, and we appreciate your input. So thank you, and I want to thank everybody else for being here.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Simone. Chair's comments. I echo everybody's participation and open discussion. Appreciate the comments that came out. Just understand that I'm just trying to maintain what the complaint is and stick to the facts that are presented. If there's anything after the complaints, then as Simone mentioned, we could request separately from this. But with these specific complaints, we just want to make sure that we stay neutral and that we don't try to, I guess, make more something that's not our job. Our job is to stay as a neutral party and look at the facts. And as Simone presented, go down that swim lane. And in this case, the 13 specific prohibitions were not violated. We're not an arm of the, of law enforcement or anything like that. We're, trying to find something, but we can request information to look at further, at other meetings, as Simone took notes there. So that's all I was trying to do, but I greatly appreciate the discussion because open discussions like this educate all of us and make sure that we're, learn more as we go along, because none of us are experts. And that's all I have. Now I'll open it up to board member comments. And I guess we'll go down. Anybody have any comments they'd like to add?
Board member Barragan. Good to see everyone after a few months of pause. Good to be back in business. Hope everybody's doing fine and staying healthy.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Anybody else? Okay. Well, thank you all again. I appreciate all the participation and everybody's being present. And as Mr. Barragan said, yeah, it's been a while since we all met, and this is good that we're starting to meet with, not that we want complaints, but it's good that we're learning as we go along, because it's been, this is good in practice. But as I mentioned earlier, there's been complaints like this before that they've been resubmitted just with a little different twist. But as a board, and also as Simone stated, they will always accept any complaint. It's up to us just to go through it and make sure that it meets all the criteria before it gets to the next level. So thank you, everybody. It is now 6:29 p.m. and I am adjourning this meeting to the next regular meeting of the Board of Ethics on May 19th, 2021. And Simone, I have here that it might be at City Hall or virtual. Are you guys thinking to do it in person, or are we still going to shoot for virtual?
We don't know yet. City Council has undertaken some meetings where there's been public comment present, and some of the members online. So it's still in transition.
Okay.
Are we
So-
able to state our requests or how we feel about that kind of situation?
Sure. If
I
the
would
chair
prefer
allows.
that they are virtual. I don't know if it's necessary for, I mean, we've been able to do this for a year virtually, and I don't know the necessity for this particular board to have to actually go down there at this point. And I have been home and not around people purposely, and everything's still unknown of what's going on. And so that's my viewpoints and feelings about going in person at this point.
Yeah. Can I just add one thing, Mr. Chair? We're allowed to do virtual meetings by order of the emergency order of the governor. And I think, and so once that order expires, we would have to meet live like we used to, with some exceptions to be able to go virtual. But that includes, to go virtual, you have to be in a place where the public can go, where that one virtual member's at. So if a council member were on vacation, they'd have to go to their hotel and say, hey, can I use your lobby to let people come in and attend this meeting, which has actually been done. So we'd have to go through the whole process. But until the order's lifted, we're able to go virtual or some hybrid of it. But I'll let the city clerk know that you want us to stay virtual as long as we can. Before there's a transition or we get more information on it, we'll put it on the agenda so you folks can discuss what you would want us to say for the board as a whole.
Thank you, Simone. Is there any other board members like to comment on that? Just since we have a little bit of time. Okay, I agree with Stephanie. As long as we don't, it's not necessary, and as long as the governor's order stays in place, we'll continue doing this virtually. And at that point, when it does get rescinded, Simone will give us further guidance. And, as he mentioned, he'll give us at least some time so we could have a good transition. We'll probably have once he finds out, have a board meeting virtually and then go from there at that point. But at this point, I don't see that we need to go into City Hall for this meeting. Anything else, Simone, to that?
No, nothing else. Thank you.
Again, thank you, everybody. So the next meeting should be virtual unless otherwise, no matter what, because as I mentioned, we'll at least have one meeting before we start going back. But thank you, everybody. And I hope you guys stay safe and have a good evening. Going offline.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Marisa.